Really, genuinely, actually. Those of you who watch, those of you who comment from time to time and tell me how you see that I don't get a whole ton of views or haven't yet. Actually, I get a lot of views on my DM channel messages, but I appreciate all of the encouragement and I appreciate you. You add your energy in for me to read, and sometimes you come in and you comment, and I get to interact with you. And plenty of you email me and reach out to me, and so that's always fun. If you haven't yet, please do. wickedlydivinefeminine at gmail.com. Find me on Instagram, Facebook too. In any case, today's message is an interesting message. It's one that has been. Mm, I really want a juicy word, but I don't quite have one in there. Something between like marinating. Ooh, there we go. It's been marinating. And I mean, I've actually got pages and pages of downloads of things that have come in for this Crabbygate. But I'm not going to use any of them. And I'm not going to use my cards either. For today, we set sail on the high seas of this Crabbygate adventure, which came to me. I had a definite download while I was doing some DoorDash and realizing there's been a couple of different energy themes that have been coming to me. One was Badge of Shame, and it came to me, I want to say a few months ago, but time has definitely been weird. If you've been experiencing kind of a weirdness about thinking some things were longer ago than they actually were, or things feeling like things happened faster than you thought they would, things like that, yes, that stuff is happening. You are not crazy. Um, but there's something that came to me a bit ago called it's called the Mark of Cain, and the other one more recently was the poison is the cure. And it feels like I'm feeling called to also say I got a fortune cookie some time ago. Well, there was two of them. One said it's easier to resist at the beginning than at the end, and the other one said hope for the best, prepare for the worst. And I think another one said better late than never. So, I mean, you can apply those where they may be necessary. But in any case, the Mark of Cain one, I know I'm very pagan. I'm not opposed to any religions. It's just that's where my base, that's where I start things at. And but I'm not opposed to reading about other things. And I knew the Mark of Cain sounded like a Christian thing. And I went and looked it up. I'm like, oh. And what I actually found interesting down that rabbit hole was how, like, there are in different spiritual paths, we have different ways of all basically talking about the badge of shame. You know, like badge of honor, badge of shame. And the Scarlet Letter was another one that, like, it both went with it, and it was like, okay, this is like these two are connected. They're similar and they're separate. And then what it went to was the Pirates brand, which connected to the energy. If for any of you that have followed along closely, for y'all who ain't new, you know that I put out some stuff saying that like the Mercury retrograde karmic carnival energy included Pirates of the Caribbean, especially Captain Jack Sparrow kind of stuff in there. Now, when I learned about the Mark of Cain and I went down different tunnels with that and I got to a Wikipedia page, it showed me the Pirates brand and showed some scenes with Captain Jack Sparrow in it and talking about how, like, that's how the Navy would mark you as a pirate. Now, what's really, really kind of amusing me at the moment, I'm a little concerned about it, but I think it's more human silliness, is the stuff going on with Facebook where they're marking extreme content. Now, I have a feeling that it's not just Facebook. There's a lot of different places that are doing it, different apps that are doing it. But it's the energy of it, though. Even if the people being marked with it don't actually deserve to be marked with it, people are being marked with it. And you could look at the powers that be as like the Navy, and like in the movie Pirates of the Caribbean. Now, I've also noticed, though, that it's not just that. Like, that is much more of a, for me, that's a synchronicity that's just a really obvious one. It's like this is part of the energy of that. What is Facebook trying to do? It's trying to shame people out of talking, of sharing truths or sharing ideas that are bigger, or talking people out of things that the powers that be say are good or not good, or things like that. And it's also similar too to where, like, say a tarot reader talks about a song that gets channeled and we get dinged for it through AdSense or through YouTube if we say too many of the lyrics or things like that. It's like, wait a minute, there isn't a thing that's wrong with that, but you get marked anyways. Like, see, Mark Kane. And also, it went to a when I was looking into that stuff, it also led to Mark of the Wanderer, or Curse of the Wanderer, and that actually led me to an old show, Lost Girl, where they actually have a character in there who is known as the Wanderer, and it's effectively like kind of like this curse that you are like you're cursed to roam the earth forever alone. And what's funny is I know how many stories that have actually come out of. I think Lucifer even went into it when they brought, yeah, Cain in to the show, and like they talk like there's some forks in the road where those stories got turned into stories about vampires and things like that, and like there's all sorts of like different connections and different spiritual paths that start with, well, they tell our stories in it. Um, and then that reminds me of the song that got tied in Lost Girl. It's an old song. It's like, yeah, I'm the wanderer. I go round and round and round and round, right? And that leads. What's funny is that leads back to a video I did a while back where it was about Pop Goes the Weasel sort of energy, and it's for me it's about highlighting loops, and I think that's what the badge of shame energy really is pointing out. It's not that people are getting marked. Well, I think some people are getting. I think the scarlet letter sort of thing, like if you're in a twin flame union or anything, or not union, if you're on a twin flame journey and your twin is with like karmics and things like that, and whether you're aware of it or not, if they've genuinely been with karmics and not, well, I'm just gonna say there's scandal energy. It's very like right now I've got so many different astrology apps and tarot apps, and all of them the past couple of days have been talking about secrets being exposed, confessions being made, emotions being high, all sorts of shifts happening. If you look at the other readers that are coming across, they're talking about apologies coming in, reconciliations, things like that. Now, I think what's funny is that oh, that's so funny. There's a song on right now. It's Hard to Forget. That's another song that's been coming in a lot. That song and I Want More from Little Mermaid. Very, very Cancer-like. In any case, I'm trying to keep with the pirate theme and I'm not doing very good. I feel like after this Mercury retrograde happened, we all kind of arrived in this place, like, and I know that if I published it, I think I tried to publish it, but it didn't get published. It was Mercury retrograde, as I tried to talk about the portal that we were going into, and it definitely took us back into some old loops, brought some people back in and out, kind of showed us what's ahead, like what kinds of things might be coming or not coming. There may have been some unexpected twists and turns and plot dynamics that were not expected, and then it's like now we're on a pirate ship. Like we got to the port of the pirates, right? And now it's like everybody's kind of in this space to where it's like, okay, what the picture in my head is I'm imagining like the cast and the scene from Pirates of the Caribbean. You have the Royal Navy and you have regular people, right? Some of them are pirates in hiding, some of them are just normal people, so like some of them are fugitives. There's different things that might happen, but let's say that the Navy comes in and decides they're gonna draft as many people as possible. Were you one of the people that got drafted? And you can tell because did you get stuck in old loops? Like, were you faced with old loops and things like that, and did you stay in them? Or did you, by the time we came out of Mercury retrograde, were you in a low place, high place, new place, old place, right? And and then even like looking around you, who around you did, were there different people that got marked with kind of a pirate's mark, a badge of shame sort of thing in some sort of way? I think everybody, I looked it up astrologically too, not just on my apps. I went and looked a little deeper. Part of this is how Saturn and Pluto are interacting with each other. And I know at least Pluto is retrograde. And there's definite karmic cycles ending, but that doesn't mean that the karmic cycle has to end. We do have free will, so the question is, did you choose to repeat an old cycle that doesn't bring you, have you any old cycles that are not currently bringing you joy and gratitude and peace of mind? Or did you find yourself at the end of it having chosen old ways to be? If so, it's almost like, see, it's hard for me to say because I have a really delightful mind, and so I'm not it's like people are being lined up and being told either get on the ship, you're going to set sail. It's almost like two of them, you know what I mean? Like, oh man, there's so many parts of this whole thing. This is probably going to come out really, really weird later, but it's like there's two ships. One's a pirate ship and one's a Navy ship. And they both are bringing people on saying, either you join us or you walk the plank, right? You can't just, well, you could decide to just stand there on the port and not join, but who knows, like, I mean, who knows what might happen if you stay there. And so those that decide, yes, I'm going to be a pirate, and those that decide, yeah, I'm going to join the Navy, and then we're going to fight each other as pirates and Navy, like those people, it's like a big kickball team or Red Rover kind of thing. Like they're lining up on it. And then anybody who got caught kind of in there and is like, I don't want to be a pirate or a Navy person, they're being made to choose. Okay, if you don't want to be a pirate and you don't want to be a Navy person, you will walk the plank, right? And the plank is kind of one of those, like if you imagine if you're standing on the end of a plank and you're staring into the ocean, and typically when you're made to walk the plank, they usually tie something on you so you have to sink. That doesn't, I think that'd be more spiritual metaphor at this point in time, but like if you, it's so funny, I don't see any wrong answers in any of it, and I don't know how this is going to be explained exactly later. I have a feeling this is really going to be a message for those who really like pirate metaphors, and you will completely understand what I'm saying. But I feel like there are some, how do you even say it? I feel like eventually everybody's going to have to walk the plank because it's emotional waters. And this is Cancer season. That's why it's Crabbygate. And I think the peak, well, I don't know about the peak of it being tomorrow, 7/7/2021, but it's definitely an important part of Crabbygate. I think normally a peak would be around the dates that we see synchronistic numbers lined up, but not always. This one feels like because the moon is kind of all over the place and we have other elements in the sky that it's not exactly the way you would expect. It's a lot of expect the unexpected. And it fits because when I think of cancers, they rarely ever do anything A to B in a straight line. They're like crabs. They go sideways, they might go backwards, like they do it in a different order. And so we're all kind of having that energy going on. Either way, it feels like some sort of like as Crabbygate continues, there will be a continual kind of revealing of the pirates branding or the scarlet letters or things like that. And a lot of it, I, we're all being faced with some of the energy, like looking at the difference between need and want, looking at the difference between being needed versus being wanted. And also, I mean, it's Cancer, so it's all about the home. So there's a really big focus on home, not just as home as a like the house that you live in, but home, you, home. This is home. This is home. And anybody that feels like a part of the sense of home in terms of your life, who you are, could be uh, lovers or best friends or spouses or family member, things like that, children, parents, stuff like that. Like what there's definitely an emphasis on home. And you might look even to your moon sign, which is related to the mother, and it's the moon, so the moon is ruler of Cancer, and look at maybe are there any lessons within that that you can work on, because I see the majority of people, I think, because of the energies we've gone through over the past year and a half, but definitely through this Mercury retrograde in Gemini, which Mercury is direct, but we still have, in fact, tomorrow, maybe that's why tomorrow is significant. The 7/7 is when we are out of the post shadow of Mercury retrograde. And it's okay if you did, if you initiated a couple things towards the end of it, they might have a little bit of shaky energy, or they simply might not be like permanent in there. And that's not always a bad thing. But be aware that as we go towards tomorrow and the next days, that the things that you say or do or put in there could be a little more longer lasting, so be careful with what you speak into existence. I'm definitely feeling I think Divine Maverick and a couple of, in fact, it'd be nice if I could remember everybody, but I know there's been multiple mentions, and I've been getting it, like collectively too, is that now is, it's not a time, in fact, now is the worst possible time that you could be deceitful, though it's also a good time to practice recognizing you don't have to share everything with everybody. Not everybody needs to know everything. Not everybody's ready to know everything. But it's kind of, it's like finding a balance. Like as a parent, you have to find a balance between, what things do you share with your kids? Or rather, I should say, I feel like you should share most all things. There's some obvious, like, don't be talking about sex and stuff like that with them, other than contexts that are relevant for them and mental health. But like, and you don't talk to them about what you do in the bathroom, stuff like that. Otherwise, I think most things should be discussed, because when they get older, they might end up in a similar experience, and that's your opportunity to help them understand. But depending on their ages and what life has been like for all of you, you're going to have to find a balance between what do you share with them and what do you hold back, not to keep it from them, but to wait until your intuition and your heart and your head match, and you know that they're ready for that information, that kind of thing. um, and it's kind of a similar thing in terms of like adults or work or things like that. Like, you don't need to, I think the big thing is you don't need to be hyper vigilant about it. It's just that right now is one of those times that it's very, very important that you trust yourself and your intuition. And because of the lovely pirate energy in there, and the fact that, I mean, you could see a pirate either way, just as you could see the Navy either way. They could be good, they could be bad, they could be chaotic good, it could be all sorts of things. Same thing with somebody being marked with a pirate's branding or scarlet letter. You could see somebody as cooler for that, or not as cool, or, you could go all sorts of ways with that. But the big thing is to be comfortable being in a place where you allow things to play out around you without waiting for them to play out. Like, you just know that they're going to happen as they're going to happen. And you are discerning about what information that you might hand out. Now, part of this too, I've been torn about doing another video about it. I know I'm going to talk about it a little bit, but it's one of the things that Spirit tells me not to talk too much about, but definitely to talk about. I might start doing some twin flame mission messages either on here or on Patreon. If you haven't come join us on Patreon, please do. But there's definitely a 5D battle of sorts that's, I don't know if it's happening or about to happen, but it's definitely a time to take care of yourself. You've been through whatever you've been through, and it's time to refresh. It's time to remember who the F you are. It's time to go have some fun, you know? And if you're unable to have fun for any reason, say some karmic thing comes in, or maybe you got lots of stuff to take care of, messes around the house, or maybe you gotta beautify yourself a little more, whatever you gotta take care of, find a place within you to be grateful for it. And if there's anybody in your environment who is a source of negative energy, it's okay to release them for now and to recognize that anybody that you know that is meant to stay on your path, they're going to come back in. Spirit's going to make sure that it happens. This is definitely a time also to very much listen to spirit, listen to your intuition. That doesn't necessarily mean don't listen to anyone else. I'm a firm believer that spirit will either, like when a message is meant to get to you, you will likely hear it from a lot of people and agree with it, or you will hear it from a lot of people and disagree with it, and likely it's the same is true for both, no matter how many people you hear it from. Like, you know what is true, you know what is real, you know your own heart, you know the hearts of others. Now is the time for the greatest adventure at all of all, kind of this, like, screw y'all pirates and screw y'all Navy, I'm taking my own boat. Maybe kind of like Captain Jack in a way, like, just steal, I just need a boat, you know? And you go set sail. And you don't have to, like, the place that you're moving away from, whether energetically or emotionally or whatever, it doesn't mean you have to be gone forever. It doesn't mean you can never come back. It doesn't mean you can't change your mind. And it doesn't mean that you can't, I don't know, do it any way that you want to. You're really not limited. You are unlimited in what you can do. And another message is kind of like, I feel like there's this thing called a season, and I know what we think of as seasons in terms of like winter, summer, spring, and fall, but there's also seasons of love, and there's seasons of, different things that we can go through. And Spirit's still teaching me what the measurement of that is. I'm aware that it's not likely to be like an even cut it in quarters kind of season, but it will be, I'll have some way to teach it at some point when I figure it out, and it'll help people, and that'll be great. Until then, there is a season of adventure upon you. Now, if you're afraid to walk off the plank yourself and dive into those deep waters where you might find your own ship to be able to set sail and go after the black pearl if that's what you want, or go off and have some other adventure. I'm kind of being reminded of I think it was GameCube Zelda or something like that. I didn't get into it quite as much because the changes on it threw me off, but it was all about sailing and stuff like that. Actually, part of the reason I couldn't play that one is there was so much sailing, and it made me kind of seasick because the graphics were really, they were really trying to outdo themselves in previous ones. I remember reading reviews on it to where they were like, yeah, like they put so much energy into the new graphics that the story kind of sucks, which happens sometimes. And actually, thank you, Spirit. Thank you to my benevolent guides. That feels like some of the energy that's kind of coming out now, especially after the Mercury retrograde and Gemini energy and how it interacted with the solar eclipse and things like that, is kind of that I didn't think that far ahead when I made decision A or decision B or decision H. Or kind of this, like, this energy of like when you've read a book and then you watch the movie and you see that like 60% of the most important parts of the story have been cut out. And yeah, you know that the movie makes sense to people who haven't read the book and it's really great for them, but you're kind of like, really? You took out the really special stuff. Like, I get that you could take out a lot of it, but why this or why that or why this, right? That's kind of some of that. There's definitely this like poor me sort of energy, or I got screwed kind of energy, or this wasn't what I signed up for. This wasn't what I expected kind of thing. And then definitely this energy of look at me. Like, I generally think about the piece in Harry Potter where, what is it, in the movie where Harry is like, he's been going in and out of the dreams with Voldemort, and he's been brought in to see Dumbledore, and Dumbledore won't talk to him or look at him when Dumbledore was trying not to connect with him because he thought it would be a way to get him hurt more. And then like Harry turns and looks at him and says, "Look at me," right? Like, and kind of that like, "Am I crazy?" energy too, and that like, oh man, there's so many different things. I've been seeing a lot of stuff like war ponies, more eagles, stuff like that. There's definitely some big energy that's been a part of this Crabbygate that you may have noticed from 4th of July or just near the end of June. Like, things that have happened in there are going to be very significant, especially because now Cancer season is already typically a very emotional season, depending on where you're at in your journey. And it's definitely one of those, what I'm going to say is, embrace your emotions, though be careful about having your emotions embrace you. Not that you shouldn't do it, but it feels like a lot of this 5D battle stuff is not necessarily with others. Like, this is the one between you and you. And it will both be the toughest and easiest battle you've ever faced. And that will, even that in and of itself, will depend on how much you've actually faced yourself. You really looked around, really taken in the reflections, if you felt triggered by other people, looking at how you are reflecting what you're triggered by, keeping in mind that typically accusations are confessions, things like that. And are you able to comfortably stand in your power without going to extremes? Um, how are your boundaries? How are things, in your regular life? And what passion projects, what things do you have to focus on? Like, a lot of us have been, at least in the readers' land, have been talking about this hot girl summer energy, right? Which can be hot guy summer too, or hot mama summer, or hot papa summer, whatever summer makes you feel delicious. And part of that energy is like this, I think it's more coming around like Lionsgate 8-8, but Cancergate 7-7 is getting us there. And I think it's a lot to do with that, like I was saying earlier, that home energy in terms of who are we when we don't have somebody that we're taking care of. And that can, like, even if you have kids or parents that you take care of, I mean, look at that relationship. Do you really care for them? Or well, that's even a part of it. I think that's a lot of this Cancer energy. Are you taking care of people you're supposed to be taking care of, or are you taking care of people that should be taking care of themselves? Are you taking care of yourself? Like, just as a question on its own, whether or not you're taking care of anybody else. And is there a way that you can get yourself into a position where you're neither taking care of anybody nor being taken care of by anybody? Because that's a space that a lot of people are afraid to go into, and it feels like the energy of the walk the plank stuff is like those who are, oh man, I'm low on battery, I'm gonna have to finish this up. Those who are afraid to take a journey either alone, or to pick a side fully, or that say they want to stay on land because they're afraid of boats in the sea and whatever thing. They're the ones that are going to have to walk the plank and have something spiritually tied to their legs so that they sink down to the bottom of that. And it's not an ocean where you can't breathe and stuff, but it's an ocean where you're getting faced with your emotions. And it feels like the two most prominent timelines are those of you that are consciously aware of this. Probably those of you who are watching this, most of you. And you're going to be able, like, you're still going to feel it. Maverick did a video called The Energy's Heavy, but It's Beautiful. I think that applies about now, or again. And I know Intuitive 717 did some videos recently too that also apply, and also a channel called A Heart for Divine Feminine. Very awesome, awesome readings. I love it. Please check her out if you get a chance. And I think with the awareness of it, you're going to recognize that which needs to be released, whether permanently or temporarily or somewhere in between, because you can release things without it necessarily being permanent. And you're going to notice there are, like, if you think of a game of chess or a game of Monopoly, there's multiple pieces that you can play in these spaces. And you might you're going to be conscious of things going on. You're going to see people around you. I want you to recognize that if you've not yet been in a space where it's just you and you, regardless, I mean, you might have a spouse, or you might have some, you might have family around. You're always going to be you. But it's a Cancer season. This Crabbygate is really good for those of you who are conscious to find a balance between that hermit energy of not quite being the whole theme park, and also not becoming like a complete hermit. So it's like, what would be the other side? I'm thinking like hermit energy and sun card energy, like between the two, being open and emotionally available, and yet also being discerning about who you share things with, especially because if you have anything in particular that you want to manifest, if it's something that you're finding other people have a hard time believing you on, or really going on you with it, and you feel aligned in your head, heart, and spirit about it, then you got to get yourself out of your own way by no longer like participating in those. And that's whether that your goal is to become like a millionaire, or to reconnect with someone that you love, or to do something really spectacular, get yourself a home, a house, and whatever thing it is. Like, think about what Abraham says. You got to make your emotions, we got to make your vibration the most important thing. And the prime message that I'm getting from spirit is, at least for Crabbygate, which I'm going to say lasts probably somewhere up to just before Lionsgate on 8/8. And it's a great time to work on looking at peace of mind and peace of heart. Like, and looking at, where are you afraid to let go of certain things, and why? Like, and you will feel like the things that are meant, how do I even put it? You will know when it is right to act or not act, because you will feel a sort of peacefulness about it. And that doesn't mean the moment that you go to do it, you're necessarily going to feel peaceful, but you can, use your emotions as your GPS. Does this feel scary and exciting, telling me that I probably should do it? Is this about me facing a fear? Is this about me cultivating peace of mind in my life? Is this bringing me some kind of peaceful experience where I feel grateful and joyful? And I mean, I feel like this Cancer season's not necessarily, I mean, there's probably going to be some parts where you're like, woohoo, but it feels more like a slower upbeat song, to where there's definitely some grieving going on. There's cycles ending, new cycles beginning, rebirths happening, transformations happening, things like that. I think seeing the Clue movie, the synchronicities so much, kind of also lends to some of this energy of like the who done it sort of thing. Like, was it Mrs. Peacock with the candlestick in the library, that sort of thing. And some of that energy is still coming out, because we're still not, like I said, not till tomorrow, we're not fully out of the Mercury retrograde in Gemini. And because it was Mercury retrograde in Gemini, we now have some more energy of Mercury in Gemini, because it was going backwards, so now it's going forward. We're going to be in that a little bit. And typically, when when Mercury goes direct in Gemini, like, that's its home sign, man. Oh, mama, it loves, like, Mercury in Gemini. Oh, yeah. And with Pluto and Neptune in retrograde, that's very likely going to mean a lot of communication. Maybe even, well, I mean, I would say, because of the Mercury and Gemini's association with the Magician card, that it could very likely be from, like, well, I'm going to say both pleasantly expected and kind of not as pleasantly. And you know what? It depends. It depends on you. This is why it was so important how you went through the Mercury retrograde and stuff. Like, did you go through Mercury retrograde thinking about icky things, or did you go through it thinking about positive things? Did you go through it, looking for who might have been like doing something that you didn't like, or did you go through it looking for the goodness in people? Did you plant seeds of goodness? Did you plant seeds of dissension? Were you a pirate, a renegade, a general passerby? I don't know. Either way, the other timeline is that if you've not been as conscious, depending on where you are in things, you might go through another season of cleaning up some old momentum. If this is the case, Spirit has likely done one of its famous things and done sort of a lay you flat on your back sort of move. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're actually laying up. You might be depressed, or you might injure a body part that just means you have to rest for a little while, or an old injury may resurface, or another injury may, like you might, and I know somebody that ended up with like an eye infection and stuff like that. Like whatever it is, if there's something that's preventing you from setting sail on the high seas in whatever role you want to set it in, Spirit has likely kind of brought you into this lockdown energy of sorts, to where you got to look at the relationship between you and how you're interacting with others around you. If you got any badge of shame energy going on, to look at the like your own challenges with shame and stuff like that. And I think that, well, not think, I feel like this really incredible, like, divine mother energy within all of this, and that very much is Cancer. Cancer is the mother. And it's also, well, there's just so many things involved in it. It's going to be an interesting season, that's for sure. And I'm going to try to do some more videos, but I'm almost feeling like I might do stuff that I have not done before. Try a little bit of different info, try to get Patreon up a little bit more. So if you would like to go for this adventure, then please follow me, join me, like, share, subscribe, add your vibe to the tribe, and I'll see if I can at least make your life entertaining, if nothing else. Alright, y'all, I'll see you in the next video.